Have you ever walked through a dense fog? The kind that swallows sound and blurs the edges of the world, leaving you adrift in a gray nothingness? You strain your ears, convinced you heard a voice, a footstep, a rustle in the undergrowth. You lunge forward, your heart hammering against your ribs, only to find nothing. Just the damp chill clinging to your skin and the mocking silence amplifying your solitude. This, my friend, is the anatomy of a chase. And love, in its more fevered, less examined forms, is often just such a blind, desperate stumble through the fog. We are told stories, aren't we? Fairy tales where the valiant knight braves dragons and curses to win the hand of the fair maiden. Romantic comedies where the grand gesture, the relentless pursuit against all odds, finally melts the heart of the seemingly unattainable beloved. These narratives, slick with sentimentality and devoid of genuine understanding, have seeped into our collective consciousness, shaping our expectations and poisoning our instincts. We learn to equate persistence with passion, obsession with affection, and the chase itself with the ultimate validation. But what if the opposite were true? What if the act of feverishly pursuing someone actually diminishes their desire, like a flame suffocated by too much oxygen? Consider the whispered wisdom of Arthur Schopenhauer, that grim philosopher who peered into the abyss of human motivation with the unflinching gaze of a surgeon. He observed the fundamental nature of will, that relentless, striving force that underpins all existence. And within this will, he identified a curious dynamic. Desire thrives on absence. What is readily available, easily obtained, loses its luster. The fruit hanging just out of reach always seems the sweetest. Think of the child reaching for a forbidden toy on the highest shelf. The very act of it being forbidden, of requiring effort and ingenuity to obtain, amplifies its allure. Once it's in their hands, the novelty often fades quickly. Human desire, in many ways, operates on this same primal principle. The object of our affection, when perceived as a prize to be won, ignites a certain hunter's instinct within us. The obstacles in our path, the perceived indifference of the other, only serve to fuel the flames of our pursuit. But what happens when the hunter suddenly stops hunting? What happens when the relentless pursuit ceases? The grand gestures fade, and the object of desire is no longer the center of your frantic universe? The silence that follows can be deafening. The fog, once filled with the echoes of your own desperate calls, now hangs heavy with a different kind of tension. It is in this unsettling stillness that a curious phenomenon can occur. The pursued, no longer feeling the pressure of your advance, may begin to turn their gaze back. They may begin to wonder why the chase ended. What caused the sudden withdrawal? The absence of your pursuit can, paradoxically, spark their own curiosity, their own flicker of, perhaps not love, not yet, but a dawning awareness of your absence. Consider the ancient Vietnamese folktale of the moon rabbit. Legend says that on the full moon, you can see the silhouette of a rabbit pounding herbs in a mortar. One version of the tale tells of the Jade Emperor, disguised as a beggar, who asked 3 animals for food. The fox offered its catch, the monkey offered fruit, but the rabbit, having nothing but grass, leaped into the fire to offer itself as sustenance. Moved by this selfless act, the emperor immortalized the rabbit on the moon. The moral? Sometimes it is in withdrawing, in offering yourself not in frantic pursuit, but in quiet dignity, that you truly capture attention. Have you ever felt the unsettling pull of a story left unfinished? A melody that abruptly cuts off mid-note? Our minds crave closure, and the sudden cessation of a chase can leave a void, an unanswered question. Why did they stop? Did they find someone else? Did I misread the situation entirely? These questions can be far more potent than any amount of pleading or grandstanding. Of course, this is a dangerous game. There is no guarantee that the cessation of your pursuit will spark reciprocal interest. It may simply confirm the other person's lack of attraction. But consider the alternative. Continuing to chase someone who is indifferent, pouring your precious energy into a void. Is that not a far more certain path to heartbreak and self-recrimination? So, the next time you find yourself caught in the throes of a relentless pursuit, pause. Step back into the fog, but this time, do not call out. Allow the silence to settle. Observe what happens in the stillness. You may be surprised by what or who chooses to emerge from the mist. What unsettling question does this truth stir within you? Have you been the hunter or the hunted? And what ghosts of those chases still linger in the quiet corners of your mind? True connection blossoms not from neediness, but from the rich, self-contained garden of a fulfilled individual. Imagine a banquet hall, vast and echoing, filled with empty plates and overturned goblets. Now picture a single table in a quiet corner, laden with exquisite delicacies, the aroma of roasted spices and aged wine filling the air. A lone figure sits at this table, savoring each bite, lost in contemplation and quiet enjoyment. Which scene feels more complete? Which figure emanates a greater sense of self-possession? We are social creatures, yes. The yearning for connection is woven into the very fabric of our being. But somewhere along the way, this natural desire has been twisted into a frantic need, a gaping void that we desperately seek to fill with the presence and approval of others. We are bombarded with messages that equate love with completion, that suggest we are somehow half-formed until we find our other half. This insidious myth fuels the relentless chase, the desperate clinging, the fear of being alone. But consider the wisdom of Nietzsche, who championed the individual, the self-overcomer who finds strength and meaning within themselves. He warned against the herd morality that seeks to homogenize and diminish the individual spirit. True love, true connection, he might argue, can only arise between two fully realized individuals, each standing on their own ground, offering their abundance rather than seeking to drain the other's resources. Think of the lotus flower, rising in pristine beauty from the murky depths of a pond. Its beauty and resilience are not derived from the mud, but from its ability to draw nourishment and strength from its own roots, to unfurl its petals towards the sun with independent grace. Similarly, a fulfilling relationship cannot be built on a foundation of neediness and dependence. It requires two individuals who have cultivated their own inner landscapes, who have learned to find solace and satisfaction within themselves. Have you ever encountered someone who seemed utterly at ease in their own company? Someone who radiated a quiet confidence that had nothing to do with arrogance or boastfulness? There is an undeniable allure to such individuals. They are not seeking validation. They are simply being. Their solitude is not a prison, but a sanctuary, a fertile ground for creativity, introspection, and self-discovery. A recent study in the Journal of Solitude and Well-Being, 2024, suggests that individuals who embrace voluntary solitude report higher levels of creativity and personal growth. The ability to be alone, to engage with one's own thoughts and feelings without the constant need for external validation, fosters a sense of inner resilience and self-awareness. This, paradoxically, can make them more attractive to others. They are not seeking a rescuer or a completion. They are offering companionship and shared experience from a place of wholeness. Consider the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, the beauty found in imperfection and impermanence. It celebrates the unique character of things, the quiet dignity of age and simplicity. Similarly, embracing your own imperfections, finding contentment in your own skin, even in your solitude, can be deeply attractive. It signals self-acceptance and inner peace, qualities that are far more compelling than any manufactured facade of perfection. The frantic chase often stems from a fear of being alone, a belief that solitude is a punishment, a sign of failure. But what if solitude could be a source of power? What if the time spent in your own company could be used to cultivate your passions, to explore your inner world, to become the most compelling version of yourself? Think of the old alchemists, laboring in their solitary workshops, seeking to transform base metals into gold. Their journey was one of intense introspection and self-refinement. They understood that true transformation begins within. Similarly, the journey to finding meaningful connection often begins with the solitary work of self-discovery. So, the next time you feel the urge to chase, to seek external validation, turn inward instead. Cultivate your own garden, feast on the fruits of your own labor. The most alluring invitation you can offer is the quiet confidence of a person who is truly at home within themselves. What hidden feast lies dormant within your own solitude? What treasures might you unearth if you dared to stop chasing and instead cultivate the rich soil of your own being? In the intricate dance of desire, what is withheld often holds more value than what is freely given. Imagine a marketplace, bustling with vendors hawking their wares. One merchant displays a mountain of common stones, freely available to anyone who passes by. Another, in a dimly lit corner, carefully unveils a single, exquisitely carved jade pendant, its price whispered in hushed tones. Which item commands more attention? Which is imbued with a greater sense of value? Human psychology, in its often perverse complexity, frequently operates on this principle of scarcity. What is abundant, easily accessible, tends to be taken for granted. What is rare, difficult to obtain, becomes coveted. This unsettling truth extends to the realm of human connection, where the constant availability of affection and attention can, paradoxically, diminish its perceived worth. Consider the myth of Echo and Narcissus. Echo, cursed to only repeat the words of others, pines for the self-obsessed Narcissus, who is incapable of loving anyone but his own reflection. Echo's constant, unrequited devotion only serves to further his indifference. It is her very availability, her utter lack of self-possession in his presence, that renders her invisible to him. This dynamic is not merely the stuff of ancient myths. Modern research in relationship psychology, Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, 2023, suggests that maintaining a degree of independence and a sense of personal boundaries can actually increase attraction and long-term relationship satisfaction. Individuals who are constantly available, who readily drop their own plans and interests to accommodate their partner, may inadvertently communicate a lack of self-worth and make themselves appear less desirable. Think of a rare and elusive bird. Birdwatchers will spend countless hours enduring discomfort and frustration for a fleeting glimpse of its vibrant plumage. The very difficulty of the encounter enhances its value. Now imagine that same bird perched on your windowsill every day, chirping incessantly. Would you still feel the same sense of awe and excitement? The chase, as we discussed earlier, can be intoxicating for both the pursuer and the pursued, at least initially. For the pursued, it can provide a sense of validation, a feeling of being desired. However, constant pursuit can also become suffocating, a drain on energy, and ultimately diminish respect for the pursuer. Conversely, the complete absence of pursuit can, as we've seen, pique curiosity. But there is a subtle middle ground, a delicate balance between availability and distance, where the careful withholding of affection and attention can create a powerful magnetic pull. Consider the strategic withdrawal in a game of chess. Sometimes sacrificing a pawn can create an opening for a more significant gain later in the game. Similarly, in the dance of human connection, strategically creating space, focusing on your own life and interests, can paradoxically draw others closer. It communicates that your time and attention are valuable, that you are not simply waiting by the phone, eager for their every crumb of affection. Have you ever noticed how a text message that takes hours to receive can feel more significant than an immediate reply? Or how a partner who occasionally spends time pursuing their own hobbies and passions seems more interesting and dynamic than someone who is always at your beck and call? This is the currency of absence at play. It's not about manipulation or playing games, but about recognizing the inherent human tendency to value what is not always readily available. Think of the ancient practice of veiling. In many cultures, concealing the face was not necessarily about oppression, but about creating an air of mystery and intrigue. What is hidden becomes more alluring to the eye. Similarly, revealing every aspect of yourself too soon, making yourself completely transparent and available, can diminish the sense of mystery and excitement that fuels early attraction. The bitter irony, of course, is that many men are taught to be the constant pursuers, to shower women with attention, to prove their worthiness through relentless effort. But this very approach can often backfire, creating an imbalance where one person is constantly giving and the other is constantly receiving, leading to a devaluation of the giver's efforts. So consider this unsettling truth. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to step back, to create a void, to allow the other person to experience your absence. It is in that absence that they may truly begin to understand your worth. What are you giving away too freely in your own life? What aspects of yourself might become more valued if you held them back, not out of malice, but out of a recognition of their inherent worth? True strength lies not in clinging to what hurts us, but in the courageous act of walking away towards our own horizon. Imagine a climber clinging desperately to a crumbling cliff face, their fingers raw and bleeding, their muscles screaming in protest. Below them lies a seemingly bottomless chasm. They are terrified of letting go, convinced that falling is the only certainty. But what if, just beyond their grasp, there was a solid ledge, a path leading to safety? Sometimes, the greatest act of courage is not holding on, but releasing our grip on what is destroying us. We are creatures of habit, often clinging to familiar patterns, even if those patterns are deeply damaging. We stay in toxic relationships, hold on to dead-end pursuits, because the fear of the unknown, the discomfort of change, feels greater than the pain of our current reality. We are told that perseverance is a virtue, that quitting is a sign of weakness. But what if there is a profound strength in recognizing when a battle is lost? When a chase is futile? When the object of our desire is ultimately detrimental to our well-being? Consider the myth of Sisyphus, condemned to eternally roll a boulder uphill, only to have it roll back down each time he reaches the summit. His relentless effort is ultimately meaningless, a Sisyphean task of endless frustration. There are times in our lives when we too find ourselves pushing boulders that are simply too heavy, expending our energy on endeavors that will never yield the desired result. The true wisdom lies in recognizing these futile efforts and choosing a different path. The writings of Kierkegaard are filled with explorations of despair, the sickness of the soul that arises from a fundamental disharmony within oneself. One form of despair, he argues, is the unwillingness to be oneself, a constant striving to be something we are not, often in pursuit of external validation or unattainable ideals. Letting go of these false selves, of these destructive pursuits, can be a painful but ultimately liberating act, a step towards authentic existence. Modern research on resilience, Journal of Trauma and Dissociation, 2025, highlights the importance of post-traumatic growth, the positive psychological changes that can occur as a result of struggling with adversity. Often, it is the act of confronting our pain, of making the difficult decision to walk away from what harms us, that paves the way for profound personal growth and the discovery of inner strength we never knew we possessed. Think of a ship caught in a violent storm, tossed about by raging waves. The captain may order the crew to jettison cargo, to release unnecessary weight in order to increase the ship's stability and chances of survival. Similarly, in our own lives, we sometimes need to let go of emotional baggage, of toxic attachments, of unrealistic expectations, in order to navigate the storms we face and chart a course towards calmer waters. Have you ever felt the suffocating weight of holding on to something that you know, deep down, you need to release? A past relationship, a long-held resentment, a dream that has become a burden? The act of letting go can feel like a small death, a severing of a connection that once felt vital. But in that space, new possibilities can emerge. Fresh air can circulate, and the seeds of a new, healthier future can begin to sprout. Consider the ancient Zen practice of emptying the cup. In order to receive new tea, the old tea must first be poured out. Similarly, to make space for new connections, new opportunities, new joys in our lives, we often need to release our grip on the past, on what no longer serves us. The fear of being alone, the fear of facing the unknown, often keeps us tethered to destructive situations. But true solitude, the kind that is chosen rather than imposed, can be a powerful catalyst for self-discovery and healing. It is in those quiet moments, when we are no longer distracted by the noise of external validation or the drama of unhealthy relationships, that we can truly connect with our own inner voice, our own deepest desires. So, if you find yourself clinging to a crumbling cliff face, consider the possibility that letting go is not falling, but flying. Consider the horizon that awaits you, the path that will only become visible once you release your desperate grip on the past. What heavy burdens are you still carrying? What might you discover about your own strength and resilience if you dared to finally set them down and walk away? By ceasing the relentless pursuit of external validation, a man transmutes his longing into the quiet gold of self-respect. Imagine an alchemist in their dusty laboratory, surrounded by strange symbols and bubbling beakers, tirelessly attempting to turn lead into gold. They labor endlessly, driven by an external goal, often failing, often frustrated. Now imagine that same alchemist turning their gaze inward, seeking not to transmute base metals, but to refine the base elements within themselves. Their fears, their insecurities, their need for external approval. In this inner work, they may discover a far more valuable transformation. For too long, men have been conditioned to seek their worth in external achievements, in the validation of others, particularly in the pursuit of romantic relationships. The chase becomes a proxy for self-esteem, the acquisition of a partner, a trophy, to prove their masculinity and desirability. But this relentless external focus can lead to a profound disconnection from their own inner compass, a fragile sense of self that is constantly dependent on external affirmation. Consider the ancient Greek concept of ataraxia, a state of serene calmness, freedom from disturbance. The Stoic philosophers believed that true happiness was not to be found in the fleeting pleasures of external validation, but in the cultivation of inner virtue and self-sufficiency. A man who derives his sense of worth from within is far less vulnerable to the vagaries of external circumstances, less dependent on the approval of others. Nietzsche's concept of the will to power is often misconstrued as a crude desire for dominance over others. However, a more nuanced interpretation, suggests it is the fundamental drive for self-mastery, for overcoming one's own limitations and becoming the fullest, most authentic version of oneself. This inner conquest requires a turning away from the external noise, a focus on cultivating one's own strengths and values, independent of external validation. Recent studies on male identity and self-esteem, Psychology of Men and Masculinities, 2023-2025, increasingly highlight the negative impact of traditional masculine norms that emphasize emotional stoicism, the need for constant achievement, and the pursuit of romantic success as primary indicators of worth. Men who internalize these pressures often experience higher levels of anxiety, depression, and a diminished sense of self when they fail to meet these unrealistic expectations. Think of a lone wolf roaming the wilderness. Its strength and dignity are not derived from belonging to a pack or pleasing a mate, but from its own self-reliance, its ability to survive and thrive on its own terms. There is a certain quiet power in this self-sufficiency, a resilience that is born from embracing solitude and finding strength within. Have you ever felt the exhausting weight of trying to be someone you are not? Of constantly seeking approval from others? The energy spent on this external pursuit is energy diverted from the crucial work of self-discovery and self-acceptance. When a man stops chasing what destroys him, the relentless need for external validation, the pursuit of relationships based on neediness rather than genuine connection, he frees up that energy to cultivate his own inner world, to build a solid foundation of self-respect that no external force can easily shake. Consider the transformative power of grief. When we lose someone we love, there is often a period of intense pain and disorientation. But in navigating that darkness, in learning to live with loss, we often discover a deeper resilience within ourselves, a newfound appreciation for our own strength and the preciousness of life. Similarly, letting go of the need for external validation can be a painful process, but it can ultimately lead to a profound sense of inner liberation and self-acceptance. The alchemy of absence, then, is not about manipulating others or playing games. It is about recognizing that true value comes from within. When a man stops chasing, not out of bitterness or resignation, but out of a conscious choice to prioritize his own well-being and cultivate self-respect, he undergoes a fundamental transformation. His longing is not extinguished, but transmuted into a quiet confidence, an inner strength that radiates outwards, attracting genuine connection rather than demanding it. So, dare to step out of the relentless chase. Turn your gaze inward. Embrace the solitude that allows for self-reflection and growth. The gold you seek is not to be found in the fleeting approval of others, but in the quiet depths of your own being. What is one small act of self-respect you can commit to today? One step away from the destructive chase and towards the quiet alchemy of your own becoming.